world at the dawn of the 20th century was a world of great promise. Empires stretched across continents, industries roared with progress, and cities shone with modern invention. But beneath this surface of prosperity lay rivalries, resentments, and ambitions that would soon ignite the deadliest conflict humanity had ever known. It began with a single gunshot. On a warm summer day in June 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, traveled through the city of Sarajevo. Crowds gathered, some cheering, some silent, but in the shadows. A young nationalist named Gavrilo Princip waited. As the Archduke's car slowed, Princip stepped forward, raised his pistol, and fired. Within moments, Ferdinand and his wife Sophie lay dying. What might have remained a local tragedy became the spark that set the world ablaze. The assassination set in motion a chain reaction. Austria-Hungary, determined to crush Serbian nationalism, delivered a harsh ultimatum. Serbia resisted. Russia promised to defend Serbia. Germany pledged its support to Austria-Hungary. France backed Russia. Britain, honoring its treaty to protect Belgium, prepared for war. By early August, Europe's great powers were locked in a conflict that would spread across the globe. It would be called the Great War, the war to end all wars. But in truth, it was only the beginning. When the German armies marched westward, they expected a quick victory. Their Schlieffen Plan aimed to crush France in weeks, then turn east against Russia. But Belgian resistance slowed them, and at the Marne River, French and British forces stood firm. The German advance collapsed. Both sides dug into the earth, building trenches that scarred the landscape from the North Sea to the Swiss Alps. A line of mud, blood, and steel that would define the Western Front. Life in the trenches was a nightmare. Soldiers lived among rats and lice, their boots rotting in waterlogged soil. The air reeked of death and gunpowder. Days were filled with fear of sudden artillery barrages, nights haunted by the cries of the wounded. And when orders came to go over the top, men climbed ladders into a storm of machine gun fire, advancing only yards before being cut down. Battles like Verdun and the Somme became meat grinders, where hundreds of thousands died for mere scraps of land. Verdun alone claimed over 700,000 lives in 1916. The Somme saw more than 1 million casualties. These were not battles of glory, but of endurance, testing the limits of human suffering. On the Eastern Front, war was different. The lines stretched across vast plains and forests. Armies moved more freely, but the casualties were no less horrific. Russia, vast in size, but weak in industry, suffered devastating defeats at Tannenberg and the Masurian Lakes. Millions of Russian soldiers were captured, and morale crumbled. By 1917, hunger and discontent boiled into revolution. The Tsar was overthrown. The Bolsheviks seized power and, seeking peace, signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, pulling Russia out of the war. For Germany, this was a temporary victory, but it also meant they now faced the full strength of Britain, France, and soon, a new enemy from across the ocean. World War I was not confined to Europe. It was fought in deserts and jungles, in colonies and seas. The Ottoman Empire, siding with Germany and Austria-Hungary, waged brutal campaigns in the Middle East. The British, with the help of Arab rebels, struck back, promising independence to the peoples under Ottoman rule. In Africa and Asia, colonies were seized, and soldiers from India, Africa, and beyond were dragged into a European war, their sacrifices often forgotten. This was not merely a European conflict. It was the world's first truly global war, and with it came terrifying new weapons. The machine gun turned open battlefields into slaughterhouses. Artillery shells, fired in their millions, shattered men and landscapes alike. Poison gas crept silently across no man's land, burning lungs and blinding eyes. Tanks rumbled forward, primitive but unstoppable, changing the nature of land warfare. Above the trenches, the skies became a new battlefield. Fragile biplanes clashed in dogfights, while Zeppelins rained bombs on cities below. Beneath the seas, German U-boats stalked merchant ships, seeking to strangle Britain's lifeline of supplies. This was war in the modern age, industrial, mechanized, and merciless. For the first years, the United States watched from afar. President Woodrow Wilson urged neutrality, but German submarines sank American ships, killing civilians. Then came the Zimmermann telegram, a secret message in which Germany encouraged Mexico to attack the US in exchange for lost territories. The message was intercepted, and outrage swept across America. In April 1917, the United States declared war on Germany. American soldiers, fresh, eager, and well-supplied, crossed the Atlantic. Their arrival tipped the balance. For the exhausted Allies, it was a surge of hope. For Germany, it was the beginning of the end. In 1918, Germany launched one final desperate offensive. Their armies pushed deep into Allied lines, but the effort drained them. When the Allies counterattacked, now with American strength behind them, the German army collapsed. One by one, the Central Powers fell. Bulgaria surrendered. The Ottoman Empire crumbled. Austria-Hungary dissolved into fragments. Finally, on November 11th, 1918, Germany signed the armistice. At the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the guns fell silent. The Great War was over. But peace was not kind. At Versailles, the victors demanded retribution. Germany was forced to accept blame for the war, pay crushing reparations, and surrender its colonies. Austria-Hungary was dismantled. The Ottoman Empire was carved apart. New nations emerged, but so did new resentments. The League of Nations was created to preserve peace, yet without the full commitment of the great powers, it proved powerless. The world hoped for stability, but beneath the surface, anger simmered. The seeds of a second, even greater war were already being sown. The human cost was unimaginable. Over 16 million lives lost, tens of millions wounded, maimed, and scarred forever. Entire villages in Europe emptied of young men. A generation lost to the trenches. The survivors carried their trauma home, haunted by memories of mud, fire, and death. Women, who had filled the factories and fields in the absence of men, now demanded new roles in society. Empires that had stood for centuries vanished. The world that emerged after 1918 was not the same as the one before. World War I was called the war to end all wars. But history would prove otherwise. The harsh peace, the unresolved rivalries, and the bitterness of defeat laid the foundation for World War II. Yet even in its tragedy, the Great War left lessons of the dangers of unchecked nationalism, the perils of arms races, and the fragility of peace. This was World War I, a war born of pride and fear, fought with unprecedented ferocity, and remembered as one of the darkest chapters of human history. A war that reshaped the modern world and serves as a timeless reminder of the cost of conflict.